Following a massive 2-0 victory over our biggest rivals in CONCACAF, Mexico, the U.S. men's national team is flying high, and we will soon be flying into a Tuesday afternoon World Cup qualifier against the Reggae Boyz of Jamaica. And the Reggae Boyz, as many of you are aware, has been a squad that has been fairly disappointing this year in qualifying. It's a squad that a lot of people picked to finish in that top four, but have been pretty poor. At the moment, they are in 6th place in World Cup qualifying. They have 1 win, 3 draws, and 3 losses. And that has not been very good, especially whenever you look at the Reggae Boyz on paper, and especially if you look at what the Reggae Boyz could possibly be if they were ever able to bring together their top lineup. But because of a lot of issues within the federation, it seems that a full top flight Jamaica is just not something that we're going to see in this round of World Cup qualifying. That being said, they have gotten a couple of reinforcements, and this is not quite the Jamaica squad that the U.S. beat in Austin, Texas 2-0 a few weeks ago. On this particular Jamaica squad, the U.S. will face 2 of the better attackers that are in CONCACAF, that being Michail Antonio and Leon Bailey. Those 2 players are back for Jamaica, and Michail Antonio wasted no time in his last World Cup qualifier. I believe he came in, what did he come in the 74th minute, and he ended up scoring a goal in the 82nd minute. And if you haven't seen that goal, go check it out against El Salvador. He basically, there was a long clearance that he got at the midway point and then just beat the entire El Salvadorian team down the sideline and chipped the keeper for Jamaica's first goal of the game. It was pretty insane, and it just shows how much they missed that guy and how big of a factor he is. Now, outside of Michail Antonio and Leon Bailey, how will Jamaica line up? What do we have to worry about? How will the U.S. line up, and how do we see this game going? All that and more on this episode of the Yank Report. What's up? My name's Sam. This is the Yank Report, the show where we talk about the U.S. men's national team, and we're neck deep in World Cup qualifying, so if you're into U.S. soccer, hit that subscribe button. If you want to support the channel, hit the like button. Let's start out with the lineup that Jamaica played against El Salvador, because we're probably going to see largely the same lineup. They had Andre Blake in goal. They had Kamar Lawrence as the left back. Mariappa and Lowe were the center backs. Fisher was the right back. Grant and Watson were the 2 midfielders that were double pivots in a 4-2-3-1. Reed, Roof, and Bailey were the 3 attacking midfielders, and Shamar Nicholson was the forward. Now, I mentioned earlier that Michail Antonio is now in the squad. He did not start that game against El Salvador. He came in late, but it is very likely that Michail Antonio will be starting in that game. And it's very likely that in order to make room for Michail Antonio, they're going to drop another player, maybe Roof, maybe Reed, and they're going to start 4-4-2 with both Shamar Nicholson and Michail Antonio up top. And, you know, Shamar Nicholson, he's a striker in the Belgian league. He's no slouch himself. In fact, this whole front line is a very competent, very dangerous front line that is capable on seizing on any mistakes that the U.S. back line gives them. The thing is, behind that front line, it gets a little bit rough for Jamaica. In the game against El Salvador, they started Grant and Watson, and Anthony Grant plays for Swindon Town. He's 34 years old. That's a League 2 team in England. So in England you have the EPL, you have the Championship, you have League 1 and League 2. So he's playing as a 4th tier in the English Football League. And then their other midfielder was Javon Watson, who's a 38-year-old who plays for Humble Lions. So a 34-year-old and a 38-year-old not playing at a very high level, not a great recipe for success in the midfield, especially when you consider the youth and the speed of the American midfield. Now, Jamaica does have options in that midfield. They do have Ravel Morrison, and they do have Bobby De Cordova Reed, who are a little bit younger players playing at a little bit higher level, so they could come in and offer options. But once again, we're not going to see players with the technical ability of like Ache and Edson Alvarez like we saw against Mexico, and certainly there's not going to be anybody that's capable of covering ground like the American midfield is. So once again, there will be the advantage for the Americans in that midfield, depending on who we start there. And we could potentially see another game like we saw against Mexico, where the Jamaican side, even though they have this very dangerous front four, is starved for opportunities because the Americans are just not letting the ball get up there. One big caveat, though, is whenever we played that Mexican side, it was a very small Mexican side. I mean, in height, in stature. So when Mexico hit long balls up to the forwards, our big, tall center backs were able to head them down. And we had Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman, two of the better aerial threats that we have as center backs in the squad. In this particular game, Jamaica is a very tall side. Whenever you look at them just on TV, they have a bunch of towering players. Not the greatest players and not even the greatest athletes, just a very tall side. So it's not going to be quite as easy to just shut them out of the long ball game, especially whenever you consider that the U.S. will be without Miles Robinson. So if we play either Mark McKenzie or Chris Richards, neither of them are what I would consider like dominant aerial threats, and both can be gotten in the air, which is kind of scary whenever you consider that both Shamar Nicholson and Michail Antonio are very large, very dangerous attackers of the ball in the air. Moving to that Jamaica back line, of course, we got Kamara Lawrence, Mariappa, Damian Lowe, and Fisher. And, once again, it's a very tall back line. It's not the greatest technical back line. It's not the greatest defensive back line. It's a back line that can be got. The issue that I have there is, once again, it is a very tall back line. So set pieces is going to be something that I'm going to be concerned about throughout the game. I was never concerned against Mexico on set pieces. They just did not have the big players necessary to make it happen. Jamaica does. So this Jamaica squad is very much going to be looking to beat the U.S. on the counter, to get the ball up to their big strikers, to find Leon Bailey out there in space on the wing, to try to put balls into the box in the air, and to try to look for set pieces into the box. That's going to be Jamaica's recipe for success. They're not going to be able to tactically just tear us apart. They're not going to have beautiful line-breaking passes like Mexico did against us. It's not going to be that style. So I guess in short, this is a better Jamaica side than the one that we played in Austin, Texas, but it's still a very beatable Jamaica side. And it's still a fairly disorganized Jamaica side, and a Jamaica side that's not really used to playing together. So how will the Americans go about it? Well, let's say, first of all, there's going to be two Americans that played in the previous game against Mexico that won't be available. Miles Robinson and Weston McKennie both are going to be gone because of card accumulation. Miles Robinson for the red card. I'm expecting to see largely the same lineup that we saw against Mexico with just a couple of changes. I'm hoping to see Zach Steffen again in goal. Not because I think that Zach Steffen's far and away a better keeper than Matt Turner, or I don't like Matt Turner or anything like that. I just think, why do we need to change goalies every game? I thought Steffen had a really good game against Mexico, one of the better games that we've seen from him in a while, and I think just give him an opportunity again. Why change something in a back line that's already seeing a little bit of change? Let's just keep things simple and just keep the same keeper game to game. The back line is going to be Anthony Robinson. Of course, I'm going with Chris Richards over Mark McKenzie. Mark McKenzie's not playing much in Belgium right now, and he has not played great for the national team whenever he has been in there. Richards, on the other hand, has been playing fairly regularly for Hoffenheim, and we know the kind of potential that he has. A little bit better with the ball at his feet, and a little bit better one-on-one defender for my money than Mark McKenzie. Walker Zimmerman will be next to Chris Richards, and I think Reggie Cannon's going to start this game. We'll see. It looked like DeAndre Yedlin had a little bit of an injury. I haven't heard any word yet. I think the press conferences are going to come out tomorrow, so we'll know a little bit more then. If DeAndre Yedlin's good to go, he'll probably go. It doesn't seem like this window is the window for Joe Scally to get a start. That being said, Joe Scally was a healthy scratch against Mexico, and because we have already players who were scratches because of card accumulation, I'm assuming that Scally will be on the bench, so he will be available to be a substitute should there be a situation that arises where we either need another right back or we're in a situation where we can give Scally his debut and get him some minutes out there. In the midfield, and this is where things are going to be really interesting, I think, for the fans. For my money, I have Tyler Adams, of course, at that 6th spot. I have Yunus Musa, again, at that 8. He was tremendous against Mexico. And then I have Gianluca Busio. And Busio is interesting because he's just such a different player than Adams and Musa and McKennie. Whereas those guys are kind of all-action midfielders with a ton of energy and very defensive. Gianluca Busio doesn't really bring that. Gianluca Busio brings long-range passing and technique and the ability to just be comfortable on the ball. He's one of those players that if you're in doubt, you could just hit him the ball and he'll do something positive with it, whether that's retaining possession or finding a player up the field. Gianluca Busio brings verticality to this lineup, which is interesting because it's something Berhalter said a while back, but we haven't heard much anymore. So while maybe in the Mexico game and whenever the MMA midfield is on the field, you often see like Weston McKennie or Yunus Musa making long runs up the field with the ball through the midfield. Whenever you have someone like Gianluca Busio on the field, you don't really have to do that as much, because once he gets on the ball, if he gets some space, he can put a pass wherever he wants. So maybe against Mexico, the only real ball I saw in behind, like we saw Miles Robinson hit one over the top for Anthony Robinson against Chaco Rodriguez, which was a really nice play. And then DeAndre Yedlin played a ball in behind for Tim Weah into the channel. That was a really nice moment. But outside of that, we didn't see much balls that stretched the defense. With Busio on the field, we can see that. Now, the question mark is going to be Busio's physicality. And in the Gold Cup, he was not physical enough for that tournament. He got ran over, and it was very concerning for all of us Busio stands out there. But since he's been at Venezia, since he's been in Serie A for a few weeks, that part of his game has come a long, long way. He's gone from being a defensive liability out there to being somewhere between neutral and pretty good defensively. I don't think he's ever going to be like a get stuck in Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie type of defender, but he doesn't need to be. He has qualities that can help out in other areas of the field. So with those two guys around him, with Musa and Adams around him, Busio can do his thing on the field. Look for Busio to do what he does at Venezia, which is whenever the U.S. is in the build-out phase, he'll swap places with Tyler Adams. Tyler Adams will move further up the field. Busio will become the 6 just for that possession build-out phase. And then once we cross midfield, Busio will go back out to that left central mid spot. Tyler Adams will slot back in as the 6. All that being said, we could see Sebastian Lletget start instead of Gianluca Busio. Sebastian Lletget is coming off some really rough games for the national team, and I'm sure he's itching to get back out there and have a positive performance. Sebastian Lletget is not as bad a player as he looked in recent games. He can be better. I don't know that he has quite the ceiling of anybody else on the squad, and a lot of players I feel like have passed him up at this point, and I feel like this is the window where Busio really passes him up. Greg Berhalter said in a press conference that Busio is right on the edge of starting. So to me, that means that he's the 4th midfielder, but maybe Sebastian Lletget starts. I don't know, maybe. And for that front line, it's going to be the same that we saw against Mexico. Aronson, Pepe, Weah. Tim Weah is coming off an absolutely massive game against Mexico, probably the best game of his career. If you've seen the all-touch video going around that Tim Weah put together, I mean, absolutely tremendous with just about every touch of the ball that he had. Brendan Aronson was not very clinical, not very clean in the final third. He had some chances that he kind of scuffed, and just his passing in the final third was not very good. But he did bring that relentless effort, and if you're a fan of Brendan Aronson, that's just something that he brings every single game, and that's something that is so damn necessary whenever you have an away game in CONCACAF. So look for Brendan Aronson to come in and start that game. And Ricardo Pepi, I've heard a little bit of rumblings, like people were disappointed in Ricardo Pepi because of his finishing in that game. He had a couple of chances that, Ricardo Pepi normally puts on frame. His first touch was a little bit loose at times. He did have some really nice wall passes. He had a nice little touch in the space that broke Tim Weah early on in the game, and he did have his moments. And I'll say this. Ricardo Pepi's 18 years old, and he just played the game against the other national team that he could have chosen. I'm sure the emotions and just everything about that game was so intense for Pepi that I'm sure he's just, at this point, he's glad it's over and he's ready to move on to Jamaica. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a much looser, much more in the flow of things Ricardo Pepi against Jamaica than we saw against Mexico. So that's how I see them lining up. And look, this is a very beatable Jamaica side. I know that it's got some better attackers than they had in the previous game, but the U.S. is a better squad than it was whenever it played that first game against Jamaica as well. The U.S. it has put together a great game against Costa Rica, an even better game against Mexico, and seemed to really be flowing. Now, we lost Weston McKennie. Now, Weston McKennie is a fairly misunderstood player, and I think he's misunderstood because whenever fans talk about the game, they tend to want to put players into categories and rate them based on that category. And whenever it comes to Weston McKennie, it might be like a hard-working tackler in the midfield. And yes, that's one thing that he excels at. He's very good at that. But the thing about Weston McKennie is whenever you start talking about all aspects of the game, he might not be the best player on the team at any one thing, but he's pretty high up in the squad at pretty much everything. Like whenever you think about the U.S. squad, is he the best tackler? Probably not. Tyler Adams is probably the best tackler in the squad, but Weston McKennie is second or third, right? Is he the best player at bringing the ball upfield with penetrating dribbles? No, it's probably Yunus Musa, but Weston McKennie's probably second. Is he the best aerial threat on the squad? He might be. It might be Miles Robinson. It might be Walker Zimmerman, but it also might be Weston McKennie. Is he the best player at crashing the box late? Maybe that's Christian Pulisic, but maybe Weston McKennie's second. Is he the best finisher on the squad? He's not the best finisher, but I think he has the most goals in World Cup qualifying for us right now. Like, the guy just gets goals. So whenever you start kind of counting like all these different categories and you start putting together, you see how much this guy contributes in so many different aspects of the game that whenever you're without him for a game, you realize you're missing a whole lot, and no one player is going to be able to replicate all the little things that Weston McKennie brings to the table. That's what he does. He's kind of a jack of all trades, but a really, really good jack at all of those trades. And yes, he does lose the ball at times. Yes, his final ball is not always very good. You do wish that he was a little bit cleaner in passing and with his touch in the midfield and stuff, but he brings so much to the team, to the U.S. and to Juventus. So how do we see this game playing out? I think, like we said, Jamaica has a very tall squad, and they've got a squad that is very front-end heavy, has a lot of tremendous attackers, but that back end is suspect. So I'm assuming that they're going to be dropping off, they're going to be absorbing pressure, they're going to be allowing the U.S. to have the bulk of the possession, and they're going to be looking to get us on the counter, they're going to be looking to get balls into the box, they're going to be looking to get balls into the air. This is a squad that has a lot of players that ply their trade in England, whether it's the EPL or it's League One, League Two, the Championship, whatever. So I would expect Jamaica to play very similar to like a Championship squad or something like that. It's going to be a lot of Route 1 stuff. It's going to be a lot of trying to flick on headers and stuff like that. This is a squad that the U.S. definitely can beat, and if we beat this squad in Jamaica, we're that much closer to clinching a World Cup berth. We're only a few points away at this point from really solidifying that spot. But that being said, the U.S. is in a great position right now. I think I put a tweet out there. We won both domestic tournaments. We are number 1 in qualifying right now, and we just beat Mexico for the 3rd time in a row. So things are really, really good in the world of U.S. soccer. Remember, this game is scheduled for Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Central. So if you're on the West Coast, that might be right in the middle of the afternoon for you. Schedule accordingly. Schedule a doctor's visit, try to take off of work, do what you got to do. You don't want to come Tuesday afternoon, be at work, and be like, oh crap, the game's starting right now. Oh no, oh no, oh no. I'm warning you right now, it's at a terrible time, so do what you got to do to accommodate. So how do you see this game playing out? Are you concerned at all about Michail Antonio and Leon Bailey and some of the big attacking stars that Jamaica has? Do you think the U.S. has this one in the bag? Let me know in the comment section. As always, si puede hablar español, dígame un comentario en español. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. You can hit that join button at the bottom to become a member. Shout out to Manuel Arrivedes, my tier 2 member. Guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Sam, and this is the Yank Report.